Ice Cube is an American rapper, songwriter, as well as a film producer. Some of you may remember him from NWA, or one of the original members of NWA. He ended up leaving the group because of dispute over money, and he got into this dispute largely with Eazy-E and their then manager Jerry Heller. Ended in a pretty big war of words where there was diss records that came out. Think of the diss records before Drake and Kendrick. Anyhow, it was pretty public battle, and you can understand when you think about it. I mean, imagine how frustrating it must be to not be paid what you feel like you're worth, what you feel like you worked for. And that's pretty much where Ice Cube was at the time. And unfortunately, it wasn't that uncommon for big entertainment companies to make all of the money while the talent that are the ones that really work their butts off get paid pennies on the dollar. For some people, this might have been a point where they gave up. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people now that didn't get paid what they were worth. And after a couple of songs, after that dispute, you never really heard from them again. However, this wasn't the case for Ice Cube. He not only was able to continue his rap career, he was actually able to parlay it into a film career where he acted in Boys in the Hood, as well as Three Kings with George Clooney. But his biggest break came from a cult classic called Friday. Now, if you haven't seen Friday, first of all, I don't know where you've been. But if you have, I'm sure you've already immediately visualized certain scenes and thought of certain catchphrases in the movie, even including up to Bye Felicia. We pretty much all know that. So he co-wrote this movie, and get this, I didn't realize this before, but he co-wrote the movie with DJ Pooh, which he was actually in the movie. If you remember the scene where the guy in the brown little uniform was running back to his car, and Chris Tucker said, "Oh, he's gonna cry in the car." That was DJ Pooh, and that is who Ice Cube wrote the movie with. And he starred in it 1995. It was a 1995 comedy film. Cube star is Craig, a recently fired young man. He was fired from his job. And so he spends that Friday getting high, and as well as going through his hijinks with his best friend Smokey, which was played by comedian Chris Tucker. So what I wanted to do was wanted to take a look at his chart and see what he had going on at that time that led to this cult classic, and him actually breaking out in a way that some people may not have expected, given all that he had been going through with his prior disputes with NWA. So what I found is that, for one, Ice Cube had a yacht. And if you watched any of my other videos recently, you know that I spotlighted other people that had yachts in their chart. But he had a yacht between the Sun, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. So I think this is something that really helped him go independent, and entertaining caused him a major change. What this means, and that he was able to gain his career in a big way. So just to review, a yod is a major configuration based on it's a shape that forms between three planets. It's basically a triangle, very long triangle. The apex being the top of the triangle, being one planet, and then the other two planets at the bottom forming the base. And for him, the apex was the Sun. And the bottom two, of course, being Pluto and Neptune. Now, I say Neptune, Uranus, meaning they were very close to each other in his chart. So they were both kind of part of that big yod. I guess you could say forming two yods with the two different planets. So Sun ruling entertainment anyway. And the reason I say that is because Sun rules the planet Leo, not the planet, but the sign Leo. And everybody knows that Leo likes to be the center of attention, and Leo tends to gravitate toward the spotlight and entertaining. And so him having Sun a part of this yod, and that's the biggest point of the yod, shows his ability to entertain, and this actually working out for him in a very big way. So the Pluto is over his natal second house. And the second house, again, in case you haven't had an opportunity to check out one of my other videos about the second house, I had a whole video about it. It rules, among other things, earned income. And in this situation, it's earned income based on risk, because Pluto can be a pretty risky planet. It's not risky just for the sake of being risky. It's risky in a really big way, like taking a really big, a big risk with the intent of making a drastic change in someone's life. And it also represents transformation. And sometimes transformation out of like the negative part of life. Sometimes the transformation can be really bad. Sometimes the transformation can be really good. Sometimes it could be making a good transformation out of a bad situation. And so Pluto, 8th house stuff kind of has to do with that. So there's a couple of ways you can look at that. For one, you can look at that the characters, Craig, as I just said, the character Craig, the Ice Cube played, had just been laid off from his job in the movie. So that's a negative situation, right? And then you can also take a look at the situation that Ice Cube was in when he started writing the screenplay for Friday. He had to leave NWA because of his feelings of being mistreated and not being paid what he was worth. So that's a negative situation. So there's a couple of different ways that you can look at that, I suppose. But he also had his Pluto conjunct the North Node, meaning this is something that had to take place. Now, I don't talk a lot about North Node, but you will hear me mention it, because whenever I see a planet next to North Node, to me, it says that something has to happen. Something has to take place. Like every time I see it, and there's different, you can always Google the North Node to see what was said. But the reason I don't go into a lot of detail about it, because it goes into other things that I don't really necessarily want to talk about or go into. Like they start talking about karmic stuff, or they talk about this life versus past life, or all of that. I don't like to go into all that stuff. I like to present astrology from a very practical standpoint, because I want it to be something that you can easily understand. I don't want to go into concepts that are too challenging to wrap your head around. I know, because that's the way I look at it. When I'm looking at a chart, I am looking at a chart from a very practical standpoint, and how it actually works its way out in a person's life in a practical way that they can see and other people can see. And so some of the definitions of a North Node might be a little kind of out there. So the way I look at the North Node, the way I would explain it to you, as a North Node being a place where you're supposed to be going, like something you're supposed to be doing. And typically when I see like Pluto or Sun or any planet really close to the North Node, and it could be close to the North Node in the birth chart, it could be close to the North Node, and like the North Node to, it could be the birth chart North Node close to a solar return planet, or vice versa, the solar return North Node close to a birth chart planet. Either way, vice versa. When I see things like that, that tells me that there's something to really pay attention to for that person, because especially for a solar return, since it covers just the year, there's something that year that person needs to do. So he had his solar return Pluto. He had his Pluto conjunct North Node, and so that's why I said that, like, he had to make this transformation. This transformation had to take place, basically. So after that, he has solar return Pluto conjunct his birth chart or natal Neptune. And this also references his earned income from work. That's from work in counseling or writing for a visual medium. And so, yeah, Neptune can reference like counseling, that type of stuff. And of course, that this doesn't really have to do with counseling, but Neptune is also associated with writing, but more so more so for TV and film, as opposed to doing it for like a book. So whenever you think of Neptune or 12th house writing, think about the visual medium. So his natal or birth chart Neptune was also sextile his natal Jupiter, another nod to him being able to write, because Jupiter would be associated with writing as well, or a publishing of some sort. Also, he had his solar return Neptune conjunct solar return Uranus. This is another nod to entertaining through writing. And another nod to entertaining through writing is the natal Jupiter conjunct his natal Uranus. And that was also a nod to writing to me because of the Jupiter tie. Now, he did have something that I wanted to mention, and I think you can Google this. I don't think you'll find a lot of content on Google that will reference this, but there is an idea or a saying about a millionaire aspect. And this aspect, it could be basically any aspect. The good aspects or the good relationships between planets is better, but my understanding is it could be any aspect. But a millionaire aspect would be an aspect between Jupiter and Neptune. And that's considered to be a millionaire aspect. When a person has that in their birth chart, there's a belief that they have the capacity to become a millionaire, or basically amass a lot of money. So Ice Cube has this aspect. He has his Jupiter sextiling Neptune. And so he would be considered to have the millionaire aspect. And when you look for this in somebody's chart, don't be dismayed if they don't have it. Like if you look for it in your own chart and you don't have it, like, man, I'm not going to be a millionaire. Not necessarily, because all millionaires don't have this. Even millionaires, billionaires, all of them don't have it. So I don't want you to be dismayed by it. I think Elon Musk might have it or something like that. But like I said, all of them don't have it. So don't be too caught up in that. But apparently that's supposed to be a millionaire aspect when Jupiter and Neptune form a major aspect to each other. Now, a little bit about Ice Cube from a, I guess you could say, talent or personality standpoint. In his chart, without looking at the event of Friday, because what I just mentioned were at things that reference him for Friday, and how Friday ended up being this big turning point for him in his film career and his career in general. He also had Mercury in his birth chart. He has Mercury opposed Mars and trine Uranus. This tells me he's really good at communication, because Mercury rules writing. And we know that he was not only a rapper, and just so you know, some of you that may not know, I think most of you that are hip hop heads know this. Most rappers and hip hop artists, they do usually write their own lyrics, although there are certain rappers who in later years it's become known that they did not, and that can be a source of controversy for them, or a sticking point, or something for people to pick at them about. This isn't something that you have to worry about with Ice Cube, because he was always going to write his own raps. He was always going to write screenplays and stuff like that. That's a gift for him. Especially with Mercury trining Uranus, that made him good at that. So here's the catch-22 for that. So the trine between Mercury and Uranus is a positive aspect or relationship between the two planets, right? But when you look at Mercury opposing Mars, even if you don't know much about astrology, I'm sure you kind of figured out an opposition is a bit challenging. So what this says to me is that basically you wouldn't want to have a war of words with Ice Cube, because he's probably this close all the time from like cursing somebody out. And the reason I say this is because Mars is, we already said Mercury is the planet that rules communication, that's writing and speaking. But also Mars is a very aggressive planet. It's the planet, or it was god of war in Greek mythology. So as you might imagine, Mars is a very aggressive and warring planet. It's always ready to, fight. But when Mars is paired with Mercury, the fighting is usually not physical. It's usually with words. So when a person like that, they are quick to, go off, curse somebody out. He has a very aggressive speech. So that kind of came across in his hip hop career, because he had a fairly aggressive tone, I would say. But just in his personal life, if someone comes across him wrong, that's probably the side of him that they'll meet fairly quickly without him giving it much thought. Another thing I noticed about him, he has moon square Uranus. To me, this says he can be a bit indifferent. And I remember watching a video once when someone mentioned this aspect, because similar to opposition, it's not considered necessarily a positive aspect, but he can easily disconnect from people and disconnect from things that he may not necessarily like. And for some people, that may be a good thing. Because this is a square, this can also be a challenging thing as well. And so that's something that he had to kind of, I guess you could say, work through, or work around, or work beyond, or something that people who know him personally have to adjust to, I guess you could say. A couple other things I noticed about his own individual birth chart. He had Venus sextile Moon, and his Venus was conjunct Saturn. To me, this kind of works together with the Moon square Uranus aspect for him. So Venus conjunct Saturn gives him an additional tough exterior. He's probably not the most affectionate person in the world, which if you're familiar with Ice Cube, that would not be something that you don't imagine. You would imagine he wouldn't be the most affectionate person in the world, but he's probably a very sturdy person, very stable. He's probably somebody that you can rely on. Like if you are his friend or a close family member, he's rock solid. So that's what I would think about him in terms of that aspect, as far as the conjuncting Venus. And then Venus sextiling Moon, if he really cares about you, he's going to be very dependable and easy to get a hold of. He's not a fair weather friend or fair weather relative or whatever. And last but not least, Jupiter square Sun, Jupiter conjunct Uranus, and Jupiter conjunct Pluto. Jupiter also sextiles the midheaven, or MC. And as I've mentioned before, the MC usually represents the career. And so Jupiter, I mentioned, a lot of times it'll have something to do with writing. And so this is also something that helped him a lot with being able to write his way to career success. It also suggests with Jupiter conjunct Uranus that he has sparks of genius, probably, that he thinks of ideas out of nowhere. A lot of his screenplays and even parts of his raps probably came out of nowhere, and he was just sitting somewhere doing something, and then an idea came to him and he just wrote it down really quickly, and it probably ended up being either a really big hit song or a hit movie. And also this also points to his ability to not only write well, but paint a very vivid picture with the written word. So the bottom line is, for Ice Cube, who by himself already, his sun is in Gemini, and Geminis are usually good with writing. Geminis and Virgos, given the fact that those signs are ruled by the planet Mercury. They're already good at writing, but he had so many other things in his chart that suggest he would be great at writing. And not only that, because you can be great at something, but you can also have difficulty making a career out of it. But there were a lot of things in his chart that suggest that he would have opportunities to make a career out of it. And that's what he did, starting as a rapper with a member of NWA, and then transitioning into Hollywood, creating his own films and screenplays. So that's it. That's all I have to say about Ice Cube. Thank you for your time. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Ice Cube. Feel free to even drop your favorite line from the movie Friday. I think most people, that's one of most people's favorite movies if you've ever seen it. So until next time, I will see you later.